Hi, welcome to the Second Wind Academy podcast. My name's Ryan Gonsalves and I'm your host today. Channing, listen, welcome to the show. It's great to have you on here today.
Yeah, it's a pleasure, Ryan. Thanks for having me on.
Brilliant. And listen, I'm looking forward to hearing a bit more about your story. And it's quite funny because often I think I speak to people towards the end of that transition period and talk about what they're going through. Whereas what I love about our conversations is that you're kind of in the midst. You're in the midst of growing something quite special as well. So this should be a good conversation for us to have today.
I agree. I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah. So look, Channing, for those who don't know who you are or what's going on, please just take a moment. Let's give us an introduction, who you are and what you're up to today.
Yeah, I'm Channing Chasten, also known as the 1% Kid. And that comes from, I was that young boy from a young age that grew up in Cleveland, Ohio. And I had a dream of playing college soccer at Ohio State. And I actually ended up achieving that dream. I also played college soccer professionally for Phoenix Rising in the USL Championship. I wrote it. I'm now an author and a motivational speaker, an entrepreneur. I'm an author of the book, The 1% Kid, right here. So it's a pleasure to have that finally done. It was a long journey, but a journey that I wouldn't change for the world. And I'm just super passionate about inspiring youth, entrepreneurship, and networking. So like connecting with someone like you has been a blessing in my life and super exciting. So I'm excited to talk more about it.
Oh, thanks, Channing. That's really interesting to hear. I'm curious then, just jumping in, you showed us the book, The 1% Kid. Was that something you'd always thought you'd want to be? Did you always think I'm an author and one day I'm just going to get a book out?
No. So it's crazy that you bring that up because I never truly thought that I would be an author. And actually, my mom brought up the idea that, hey, maybe you should write a book. I at first was pretty hesitant to do it because I was like, I don't know. I'm not an author. I don't look like an author. And who would read my story, right? And hindsight's 2020. She had probably the best idea of her life, of my life, and it's been such a blessing to be able to write this book and have it for youth and people to share and leave a legacy behind.
Right. And what was then the inspiration behind the book, and in particular, 1%?
Yeah, the inspiration kind of comes from just my life. And being that young boy, that young child that had a dream of playing college soccer at Ohio State. And it talks about the 1% because when I was at Ohio State, where I actually achieved that dream of playing college soccer at Ohio State, I thought of transferring after my sophomore season because I was playing and I was starting a couple games, but there was a super senior that was playing a little bit more than me, and I wasn't too happy about that. So I then decided to enter the transfer portal, but came back to Ohio State, right? I was driven and determined to make sure they knew that they weren't going to keep me off the field. And after I decided to come back to Ohio State, I wrote on my whiteboard right by my bed, 1% better every day, whatever that looks like. So in soccer, in my lift, in schoolwork, and whatever it was, I was going to get 1% better that day. So that's what kind of stuck with me and why the 1% Kid is all about that. And then also the percentage of soccer players that actually play Division I college soccer is about 1.8%, if that, and then it's even lower if you're talking about playing at high level Division I college soccer like Ohio State, and then it's even lower if you're talking about a Black African American playing college soccer. So that all goes into the inspiration of why I named it the 1% Kid.
And you mentioned that inspiration. What inspired you to have that dream of playing at Ohio State?
Yeah, so I was born in Cleveland, Ohio. My mother actually went to the Ohio State University, so I was born a Buckeye, right? I was born a Buckeye. I watched college football every Saturday morning, cheering on the Buckeyes. It was kind of ingrained in me. And as I grew older, I started to watch the soccer team as well, and I was like, man, it would be really cool to play on that team. When I was younger, it was just I want to go to Ohio State. But then as I got older and I was getting good at soccer, I was like, no, the goal is to play soccer there.
Mm-hmm. Right, and well, there's an interesting point. Let's touch on that. So, for you, growing up in the US, I guess in the shadow of Ohio State, what what was sport for you then? How important was that in your life?
Sports were super important for me. I grew up playing soccer since the age of 3, and I played many other sports as well. I just liked being active and being outside. And my parents were so influential when it came to playing sports and also schooling as well. Though my parents always put schooling and then soccer, right? So no, I love sports and I that was my passion. That's what I always wanted to do. But my parents made sure that I had to take care of my studies as well.
And so, in your studies, and it's one of the interesting things about being in the US, I always find is there's always an opportunity to pursue athletic dreams alongside study or academic achievements. So, whilst academic, I guess schooling was important to you and important to your parents, how interested were you in it? How did you find the study?
Yeah, I was always passionate about getting good grades. I just was like, man, I want to get good grades. I want to be the best. From a young age, I was always like, if I'm going to do something, I want to be the best at it. So when it
Hmm.
came to schooling, I always challenged myself to get good grades because I knew in the long run, if I wanted to play college soccer at Ohio State, which is a very good, prestigious institution when it comes to academics, I have to have good grades. So that all went about it, and that all came together. And then also, my parents would kind of entice me with certain things and say, if you get straight A's, we'll give you this, right? I remember one time it was in fourth grade. My mom was like, if you get straight A's, you'll get a dog. I ended up getting straight A's, and she was like, we're not giving you a dog, but she got me a phone. I was like, okay, I'll take that.
I like that. That's just straight out bribery. But hey,
Right,
as a dad myself, I'm kind of there. I'm like, okay,
right.
a bit of that works. I think, yeah, I would probably say similar things to one of my boys, and they might score a try or get a goal or do something off the back of it. It's like, oh, hold on, how much ice cream do we have to buy now? So yeah.
Exactly. You lose your
Yeah.
memory. You lose your memory all of a sudden.
Yeah, that's right. I don't remember, you were just out there having fun, weren't you? That's it.
Right.
Let's go again. So that's good. So in terms to sort of make that dream of playing come true, a question I always like to just understand is, at what point in your football career or soccer career did you realize you were good?
Yeah, I always knew from a young age that I was like better than other players, but I didn't know that I was actually
Tell
able
me
to
how.
like.
Yeah.
I was like from a young age when I was playing soccer. I just you just see it like my touch was better. I was scoring a lot of goals. I was confident. It was just like it was just different. I had more control of my body. I was always faster than the players. I wasn't always the biggest or the tallest. I was actually really skinny when I was younger, but I just always knew I was better than these kids. And also what separated me from these other players was my mindset as well. So not just the soccer or the physical attributes, but also my mental attributes as well.
Hmm. And so
But
how
I would
did
say,
you, yeah, go on. Yeah, I was going to say, so what is it then that gave you this, oh, hold on,
yeah,
I'm
I would
ready to
say
go to that
that
next level?
that moment when I knew I could actually play college soccer or take it really far was probably when I was in junior high or maybe a little bit younger, and I was scoring goals on my club teams, and I was just like, all right, I'm pretty good at this. And I know other kids were like talking about me and like he's good, or my coach was like, you're good, but you got to keep a good head on your shoulders. You got to be disciplined.
Hmm.
And then also when I went to junior high and I was playing, I got asked to try out for RSL Academy. I was like, okay, this is the MLS Academy team, a professional team asking me to try out for the academy, and I did it. I went to the trial, and I was like, okay, I can actually do this and make either a profession out of it or go to Ohio State or go to the college level.
Hmm. Okay. And so then talk to me now a little bit. So making that transition into college. So picking the school, well, in fact, before I jump to that, you managed to get to the school that you wanted to go to. What was that process like for you?
It was a movie. It was a long, grueling process. I was at my freshman year. I started getting recruited by schools like SMU, University of Washington, a couple other schools, but I never got contacted by Ohio State. So I took it into my own hands. My mom suggested that we go to the Ohio State ID camp. It was a summer going into my sophomore year of high school, and I ended up having a great camp. I ball out, and they're like, "We're gonna watch some of your games." So I then go to Dallas Cup, which is a very very big uh, tournament in Dallas and in the USA where teams come from all over the world. I'm talking about Eintracht Frankfurt, uh, Premier League clubs, their academies, things like that. And I ended up having a great tournament. The two coaches were there, and then I come back, and they're like, they gave me a call, and they're like, we would like to offer you a committable offer. And I wasted no time in committing. But there was still 2 years to go, 2.5 years to go until I actually went to Ohio State. The next, about 6 months later, I get word that the Ohio State coach and the staff is retiring. So I have to reopen my recruitment. I have to decommit. And you can imagine how I was feeling. I was like, wow, this is my dream school. I was committed there. And now I have to backtrack and find other options. Then about a month later, I get a call from the new Ohio State coach that was hired. I was the only kid in their recruiting class for 2019. He gives me a call. And he's like, hey, I'm Brian Mazanoff. Pleasure to meet you. I see you're the one kid committed for 2019. I would love to see you play in order to see if we can still go to Ohio State. I was like, that's understandable. I then have to go to the Indiana ID camp where he was the assistant coach, and he was my coach the entire weekend. Like, he was there with me the whole weekend. And I ended up balling out. I was awarded the Offensive Player of the Camp award, and I'm on my way to go back to Arizona, and I received a call from him. He's like, we would like you to be a part of the 2019 recruiting class for Ohio State. And this was me going into my senior year. And you can imagine how I felt so relieved and so excited to know, okay, the dream is actually going to be reality this time. I'm going to Ohio State. And it was I would say that journey was difficult at times, but I wouldn't change it for the world.
No, well, that's quite a tough thing to have to go through, especially at a young age, to be given this offer, to effectively have it taken away with the view that now you've got to train in front of me. I mean, that's a lot of pressure to take. So at the time, to what extent did you feel this is a pressure or stressful moment?
Oh, I felt it immensely. As soon as I got the call from your coach, I was like, wow, all right, I got to step up my game. And not only did they have me go out to the ID camp, but they were watching my games before I even went to Ohio State, that ID camp. They were watching my games, watching my film, watching my footage. And then even once I committed to Ohio State again, they were watching my games after, making sure I was up to par. Because once you're committed to Ohio State, there's kind of a type of standard you have to uphold.
Yeah, I guess so. Did you continually feel that pressure every time you played, that you're being watched and effectively studied each time?
Yeah, not necessarily by the coaches, but also by my peers, like other players I was playing against. Like,
how
they
do you
knew I was committed to. Yeah, I think honestly I could have embraced it. I've always been doubted my entire career playing soccer. Like, oh, you're not going to do this. I told people my goals, and they thought, oh, you're not going to do that. Like, I had peers that were like, oh, you're super, super good. But I also had peers that were like, he's not that good. And I always proved them wrong. So I was actually excited to be like, I'm going to show you why I'm committed to Ohio State and why I'm doing this. My senior year, I had probably the best year in high school and in club, scoring a lot of goals, a lot of assists.
And so then now you're making that move. Athletically, you're making that move. You're at college. I'm interested to know, you achieved the dream, getting to play at Ohio State. How far had you thought, what's next? Where did you really want to get to?
I mean, my dream as a kid was always to play professionally, but I didn't really know it was possible. Even when I was at Ohio State, I didn't really know it was possible. So once I got there, I was just trying to be the best player I could be and play as a freshman and play as much as I could, which I was very fortunate to play as a freshman. I was one of only 2 freshmen to play my freshman year at Ohio State, which is kind of crazy from going from a kid that wasn't even recruited by this coaching staff at the beginning. So that was pretty amazing. But then towards like the sophomore year at Ohio State, I realized I was doing really well, and I trained with Phoenix Rising that summer after my sophomore season, and they tried to recruit me to sign after that. But I was like, I want to go back to Ohio State, see how I do, and have a better season. So that's when I really knew I can play professionally.
So how did you come to that decision? I mean, what's they're going to ask you to go and play professionally versus you coming back into that college system. What were the options, or what sort of paths did that open up, or did you indeed just close down?
Yeah, I definitely closed down the path of playing professionally for Phoenix Rising for that season, because they were going to sign me at halfway through their season. But I was like, I want to go back to Ohio State, see how I can do, because if I had a really good season at Ohio State, I knew I could have had the possibility of getting drafted and possibly being a top 10 pick. I wasn't able to do that, but I was still at the end of that season. Rising came back and was like, we would love to sign you. You had a really good season, and that's how it happened.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty cool because the more the more people I get to speak with as well, they start to get these when they're in the US this early offer of sorts to leave the college system. So I'm going to sort of come back to you on how that move came. I'm interested to understand about what you were studying whilst you were in college. So how did you come about picking the course or the subjects that you went on to study?
When I was younger, I always wanted to be a sports broadcaster or journalist. So as I got older, I realized what kind of profession or what kind of major can I go in that will help me go down this field and this path. So I decided to study communication, analysis, and engagement. That was my major. I also was very passionate in business. So I knew that in order to be good at business and in order to be good at entrepreneurship, you have to know how to communicate. And communication, analysis, and engagement is pretty similar to business, but it's a little less math. It's a little less math. And I was good at math, but I always had to try very, very, very hard at math. I always got good grades in math, but it took a lot of effort. So to go to show, after I had my last math class at Ohio State, I was never more relieved. I was never more relieved in my life.
Right. Okay. And so when you were studying, I know you have to keep a certain grade. Did you, I suppose I'm trying to get a gauge here. Were you, hey, I'm getting drafted or I'm turning pro, that's the lifestyle for me? Or did you have another plan A? Did you have this, well, outside of the game, this is where it can take me?
I always had a plan A. I had two plan A's. I was always trying to play professionally, but I always was going to graduate from Ohio State no matter what, because that was my dream school. It's such a prestigious institution with a great alumni network, and I put so much time and effort in to get there. I feel like it would have been unfulfilling if I didn't graduate from there as well. And that's why even if I left to play pro after my junior season at Ohio State, I still had a year left of school. I completed my schooling even while I was playing pro during my rookie season.
Okay, I mean, which is good, and I definitely say kudos to you to manage that balance. Coming into that, what was the challenge? What was the most difficult part about turning pro and trying to finish your college final year?
I would say the most difficult thing was when you're a pro, you have a lot more time on your hands than I thought. So when I was playing college soccer, everything was to a specific schedule, right? Everything. When you wake up in the morning, when you have classes, when you have practice, when you have study hall, everything was set to a T. But when you're in the pros, you get there at 7 o'clock, 7:30, you have practice for about 2 hours, and then you have rehab, gym, whatever it is you need to do, and then maybe film. But then after that, you kind of have the day to yourself. So I had about 6 hours to myself. I was like, man, what do I do? Then I would have to do homework, study, whatever it is I do for school. So it was about balancing that time, that free time I had, to not be like, oh, I can do so many other things, but then be like, I have to focus, I have to get my schoolwork done, and then I can do other things that I want to do.
And so let's just touch on that decision-making process for you to, if I get it right, you left college in your junior year or at the end of your junior year to turn pro. Why do that?
So for me, it was my junior year, and I had a really good season, and I knew when they offered me again, it was going to be hard for me to pass up. They offered me the multi-year contract, guaranteed, 2 years guaranteed, and 2 years options, and I knew that I have a chance of going back and getting drafted possibly by an MLS team. But the thing about that is, when you get drafted by an MLS team, if you're not a top 5 pick, there's not a guaranteed contract waiting for you. It's pretty much just guaranteed a tryout for their team. So
hold on. Just pausing there for a moment. You just for everyone to be really clear. So when you get drafted, you're not drafted to a contract. You're drafted to try out.
Unless you're a top 3 or 5 pick and you get the Generation Adidas contract, you're not guaranteed a contract.
Wow. Wow, that's like a penny drop moment for me.
It's terrible because compared to other parts in the world, you're like, you would think you get out of that contract, right? Like they've seen you play, you get this, or
That's right.
like you would think, but no.
Wow. Okay. So for you then, leaving and jumping off in your senior year, it was as much an alternative path to becoming a pro. It wasn't, I need
Yes,
to stay in college, get them and get drafted. It was, well, get out and play. I'm guessing turning pro then is, you're not in an underage or, under 23s, 24 system. You're just playing full age.
right, right. That's exactly what it was.
So, I mean, just athletically, physically, how was that for you?
I would say it was so beneficial that I was able to train with Phoenix Rising during that summer before I went into my junior year because I was able to get acclimated with the speed of play. I would say one of the fastest things, or the biggest differences was speed of play from the college level to the pro level. And also just the physicality. There was players from all over the world playing on Phoenix Rising and other teams that I played against when I was training with them. And then once I joined as a professional myself, I would say the biggest thing was being professional not only with how I manage my time, but also how I manage my body, how I take care of my body, how you study the game. There's so many more ins and outs of the game and analytical data that they go deep dive into that we don't go into in the college level.
Right, right. So you achieved that next dream. So you hit high school, college, turning pro. I suppose that crux of the question comes now is, at what point did you start to realize that this professional career is not going to last forever?
I always knew, even before I became a pro, I just knew. My parents like always taught me that you have to always have a backup plan. But for me, it was never a backup plan because I feel like that shows that like you may not achieve that dream or goal. And for me, it's like I always knew I was going to achieve that goal, so I'm not going to have a backup plan, but I'm going to have something else that I want to do as well.
Hmm.
So it was from a young age that I knew that you can't play professional sports forever. You always have to do something else, or you can do something else while you're playing pro, and that's what I
Yeah.
decided to do.
And so what was that? What is it you decided to do? And importantly, why?
Yeah, after my rookie season, I decided to write a book or start the process of writing my book. And the reason I did that was because it doesn't last forever, right? Like you said, you can't play professional sports forever. And that's why I was like, how can I leave a legacy as well? And how can I find a different way to fuel my passion, which was soccer, but it was also entrepreneurship. It's also business. It's also networking. And that's why I also started that while I was playing soccer.
How did you find the time?
Yeah, it was difficult, but like I said, you can make time. You have time. Like
Yeah,
when there was time, and maybe not the preseason. Preseason is very busy. Like you have two a
yeah.
days. You have gym, you have film, you have travel. But during the season, after training, I was able to kind of jot some things down in my notes or in my Google Doc, and
Yeah.
just write. And I just put aside
So,
probably 30 minutes a day.
so then this decision to write a book, was the 1% kid always, did that come about? Because I suppose what's happening is I'm listening to the story. It's like you're playing pro, you finish college, and then you decide to write a book. I'm like, what was then the genesis of the book? Was the 1% kid the first idea you had, or did it start much broader than that?
Yeah, it definitely started much broader. The first idea was just my mom saying, "Hey, you should write a book. Your journey's been pretty crazy. You could really inspire children." And like I said, I was pretty reluctant at first, but then once I started to get going, I just started to write, just write. And I never knew it was going
Okay.
to be called the 1% Kid until probably the end. And I was like, what can I name this? And it just came, it just clicked. Like the
Hmm.
1% Kid, like
Yeah.
1% has always been ingrained in my life. It's something that will never leave my life. I even got it tattooed on me, right? 1%. So that shows how
Yeah.
ingrained I am and how serious it is in my life.
And so let's take a moment. Just tell me a bit then. What's the synopsis of the 1% kid?
Yeah, the synopsis is the book is about a young child that has a dream of playing college soccer, right? So it's kind of like any kid that has a dream when they grow up. They could be an athlete, they could be a engineer, they could be a politician, they could be whatever they want to be. That's a goal that they have. But then in the 1% kid, it talks about what's needed to achieve that goal: practice, perseverance, and patience, and then also the 1% better everyday mindset. So these are all the things, characteristics, and mindsets that you need in order to reach that dream and goal. And that's what the 1% Kid is all about. It takes you through his journey, the ups and downs, and then the mindset he had throughout.
And you mentioned there the three P's. Uh, have they been part of your life? Have you gone through in your career and demonstrated each of those three P's? And if so, just give me an example of, for each one.
Yeah, most definitely. That's why I kind of came up about it with the three P's: is practice, perseverance, and patience. And with practice, it was whenever I was moving to a team that was at a higher level. Sometimes I wasn't a starter right away. So what did I do? I was always having a ball at my feet, whether it was in the house where my mom would get mad at me, or whether it was out at training. I was training later or before, getting extra touches, getting extra reps in. And then when it comes to practice, that was practice. Then it goes to perseverance. When it came to perseverance, there were times when I had surgeries. Like I had a hip surgery halfway through my rookie season at Phoenix Rising, and I had a torn labrum and a hip impingement, and they said I would be out 9 months. I said I'm going to come back faster than that. And there's two things that you can do when you have a challenge like that. You can either stop or you can keep going. And I decided to persevere. So that's the time where I persevered. Then it's patience. At Ohio State, I was mad about my playing time after my sophomore season. I was playing a lot, but I still wasn't playing as much as I wanted. So I even entered the transfer portal thinking I was going to transfer to a new school. I almost did, but I decided to come back. That took patience to know that you can't always get things when you need them or when you want them. And I think maybe if I got the playing time I wanted at my sophomore year, I wouldn't have worked as hard, right? So that's where I instilled or used patience as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting. It's good that, you've taken those practice, patience, perseverance from your life and put that into a book. And looking at that book, it's certainly one that's targeted towards those coming up, those who, give them something to aspire to. And we spoke about your aspirations as a kid. It was, somewhere, a school that your mum had gone to. Did you have any particular role models, that look and sound and feel like you, that you looked up to as you grew up?
Sadly, not really. And that's kind of why I wanted to write this book. Because growing up in America with soccer or football, we don't really it wasn't a big thing. It wasn't that big. I always loved it, but the rest of America wasn't really in love with the game as much as I was. So I didn't know much about other players, especially American players. So Pele was someone that I did look up to a little bit. But other than that, I didn't really have someone like a role model to really look after and be like, I want to be them one day.
Okay. And so now I suppose I'm interested, that decision to write a book, I guess perseverance it took to write that. You're saying get into your into your Google Doc and just writing every day, and that built up that story. What help did you have to then craft it into a book?
Yeah, I had a self-publishing company help me craft it into a book. I already had my manuscript ready, and I kind of knew how I wanted each page to look out in the layout. They helped me find an editor to edit, to make sure everything was grammatically correct. And then they also helped me find an illustrator, which I was really fortunate to find. He was one of the best illustrators I could find, and I thought he was going to be too busy to actually illustrate my book, but he ended up having some free time to do it, so that was amazing. And that's kind of how I was able to craft my book and get it on all these platforms.
Okay, so now the book is out on the platforms. What from a pro football perspective, where's that for you?
Yeah, I mean, I just stopped playing and kind of said, "Oh, I'm done," about a couple of months ago. But for me, I still play. I still play on the weekends. I still practice
That's
occasionally
good.
when I have free time. It's hard to take the soccer or the footy out of a player.
Yeah.
And if it was the right opportunity, I would go back and play. But if it was the right opportunity, if not, I'm super content with my passion right now, what I enjoy in business and entrepreneurship and my book. So I would if it's the right opportunity. If not, it's okay.
So Channing, how did you come about that decision to stop playing? What was that like for you?
Yeah, so after I left Phoenix Rising, which was kind of it's in the past, things happened, but it was a kind of messed up situation with how that happened at Phoenix Rising. But after that happened, I then got offered a contract at a USL League One team, and in Tennessee. It just wasn't the best opportunity for me. I thought I was worth more, and other things, other factors factored in. So I just didn't decide not to take it. So I trained the whole year, and then I played with the summer league team this past summer just to see fit and get my name out there again, which I did. But teams were interested, but I never got any concrete offers from teams. So I was like, I don't know. I'm not going to wait around. I have this business that I've been doing for half a year since January, and it's doing well. And I can really go all in with this if I just take the time to not really pursue soccer. And I wasn't getting many opportunities to really play professionally still. So that's why I decided to kind of stop.
Hmm. What was it like going through that decision-making process?
It was tough. Like, I love soccer. I love soccer to the nth degree. And it's difficult to play a game that you've played your whole life and something that's been so inspirational in your life in all aspects, not just the athletic part, but the mental aspect of the game and the camaraderie, the teamwork. And that's just was very difficult. And it was just like, wow, I might not be playing the game I love at such a high level anymore, which is difficult to kind of a realization of. But obviously, that was the hardest part for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it is, because I think for so many of us, when we play, and like it is such a fundamental part of our life, it's the dreams, it's one of the big things that we've been working towards in life. When we stop playing, it's difficult to go ahead and find something else. For you, you'd been writing a book. You had this published. When you look back then at so far at your football career, how proud do you feel about what you achieved?
I'm very proud. I kind of feel I also have a lot, not a lot, but I have a little left that could have been written as well. So if there's a possibility to play, amazing. If it's the right opportunity. But if not, I'm also very, very content. I feel like I was probably one of the best players to come out of Arizona to play soccer. I played at Ohio State, my dream school, made my name known there, not only with soccer, but also when it came to the community in Columbus and Ohio State and involving myself into different organizations. And then also playing professionally for a place that's kind of like my hometown team. Like, I grew up half my life in Arizona, so to play professionally at Phoenix Rising is kind of amazing. So it's been a journey that's been with a lot of ups and downs, but one I don't think I would change. And then I'm one that I'm pretty content on. But I feel like there is also more that I could have done and more that I can do.
Mm. So then now, thinking about where you are today and where you're heading next, what's that next aspiration for you?
Yeah, so right now for me, it's I am now an author, and I now do keynote public speaking. I also do goal setting workshops and literacy workshops for schools and nonprofit organizations, which has been great. And now I'm doing educational consulting as well. And then I just launched a training academy that I'm doing with one of my friends, where we hire these high schoolers or junior college or college players to take these kids through trainings. But then also we have a mental aspect to the game, everything I talked about, where we include goal setting, we include a nutrition plan, we include a lot of other things as well that can help these kids not only in soccer, but help them in life.
Mm. So thinking about that educational consulting and the keynote speaking, what do you bring from your professional football career, professional soccer career, to give you that edge in those types of environments?
I would say the edge comes from, like, kind of what you talk about is how it's very difficult for you to transition from being a soccer player or being an athlete into being just a regular business person or being a regular person in your career. I feel like you'll always have that competitive drive to be the best. And I feel like that's something that I could bring as an edge to other people, because I always want to be the best, no matter what it is, even in business, even in education. I always want to be the best. And when it comes to soccer or it comes to sports, we are always so programmed to a system, a schedule. And that's something that keeps me on track throughout the day of things I need to do and get things done, because I know if I don't, I won't be able to perform at my best. And that's exactly how it was in soccer, and that's how it is now when it comes to business as well.
And so your drive to grow your business, it sounds like it's an innate piece for you, the motivation, that competitive streak. But there's also this element of mastery or being the best. And I suppose being the best in football, on the field, the fitness, physical fitness, and that mental toughness. When you think now about being the best as an entrepreneur, so moving your business to 1% Kid, what does being the best mean?
Great question. I feel like being the best to me means really fulfilling my purpose. So enjoying what I do on a personal level, but also being the best. I want to be a best-selling author. I'd like to be the best motivational speaker for youth and older people, adults as well. And that takes time. It takes practice. It takes perseverance, and it takes patience. Right, the three P's. And I would also say I want to own a training facility, a 1% Kid training facility where we have the ability to open things up and have kids play, and have them have all the things they need in order to be the best selves they can be, the best players, the best child, the best sister, the best brother. So I would say that's kind of what it means to be the best to me, and I think we're on the road to being that.
Mm. Being the best for you is that personal enjoyment and fulfillment is practicing or putting into place those three P's. Right. And it sounds like the impact of that is going to be seen through, you spoke about youth, but those brothers and sisters becoming the best version of themselves, and figuring that out for themselves. So I think that sounds really good. And, as I work through that, I'm thinking, that does sound really good, right? Right. I should find a much better word, but I can't. I'm just going to say good for now. We'll dub something in.
I'll take it. It means I'm doing something right.
Yeah, and that's good. And so look, for those, you're going to have those brothers and sisters listening to you as you're talking and you're giving your keynotes or those education programs in the schools that you mentioned. What guidance do you give to them to help them, achieve or fulfill the best version of themselves?
I would say the biggest thing that I give to them is goal setting. I feel like when I was younger, if I didn't set goals that I wanted to achieve, I wouldn't be where I am today, because goal setting is so important. When you set that you want to achieve something, now you have that vision, but you then have to put a plan in place to achieve that vision or goal. Because a goal without hard work is just a dream, right? It's just a dream. So I then talk about that plan, and then how do we work for that? How do we have the right mindset? How do we have the right mental health in order to achieve that dream? Because you may have a dream, you may want to work hard, but if you're not in the right mental space, it's going to be very difficult. It's still possible. It's going to be very difficult to reach that goal. So those are the things I talk about: is goal setting, how to reach that goal, and what truly is a goal.
That's really good. That gives a bit of clarity as well. And I think for those boys and girls who are going to be listening to you take them through that really is impactful. And what is great is you've been able to demonstrate to them how you've achieved that athletic goal and then had to make that tough decision to step onto that next piece. And, really now as an entrepreneur, as the 1% Kid, helping them and probably their families take that next step closer to their fulfillment as well. That's great. So, Channing, listen, you're going to have people, they're going to want to follow your story. They're going to want to find you on socials. They're going to want to get the book. So tell me, what's the best way for them to reach out to you and find the book?
Yeah, the best way to reach out to me is probably Instagram or LinkedIn or YouTube. My Instagram is at Channing Chasten, and my YouTube is at the 1% Kid, and then the number 1% Kid. And I'm also on TikTok and Instagram and TikTok as well, which is at Channing Chasten and at the 1% Kid. And you can get the book on Amazon. The book is on Amazon or Barnes & Noble online. I really appreciate anyone that takes the time to purchase it and have it for their kid or their older kid or their adult. I think the message transcends to anyone, any age group. It just talks about how with the right mindset you can achieve anything, which I think anyone at any age can truly relate to. So, yeah, I look forward to meeting everyone and talking to people that listen to this podcast.
Channing, that's great. I just want to say thanks very much for coming on and sharing your story with me and the listeners today. Really appreciate you taking the time out.
Ryan, thank you. I appreciate it. And I really enjoy what you're doing with Second Wind and how you're really helping these athletes and guide them from going from one passion or one career into the next. So I appreciate everything that you're doing. Thank you.
Awesome. Channing, thanks a lot, man.